This is Glambition Radio, episode number 269, Discovering Your Purpose with productivity expert Tanya Dalton.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. When Tanya Dalton walked into my door about 2 years ago and said, I would like to coach with you, I have to tell you, I was so impressed with not only who this woman was, but this model she had created, because it was actually the first productivity model designed for women. It was the first productivity book by a woman for women in the business space. And she's back. Her first book was called The Joy of Missing Out, which I love that title. And her new book is called On Purpose, The Busy Woman's Guide to an Extraordinary Life of Meaning and Success. And it's a bit of a continuum from the first book, which she'll tell us about today. Tanya is also the founder and CEO of Inkwell Press Productivity Company, which provides tools that work as a catalyst in helping women do less while achieving maximum success. No doubt you have seen her products in many of the big box stores around the US. I love physical product. I've always wanted a physical product. I miss the days when we used to mail out big binders full of DVDs and CDs when I was doing all the info products. And, there was something so special about putting pen to paper or getting that binder and making notes in it while you were going through the audios. And Tanya's a big believer in the printed planners. And I think you're going to see a resurgence of that, with everything tech, everything's touchless and automated. Putting pen to paper is still this magical thing. So take a look at her products as well. We'll put a link to it here in the show notes. And I'm happy to share that Tanya is into all things Allie Brown. So she has been coaching with me for the last 2 years. And then also she's a founding member of The Trust, the modern premier network that I run for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. Join thetrust.org. And she is going to be at iconicwithallybrown.com. My Iconic event is coming up November 3rd and 4th here in Phoenix. We have about 20 seats left. There's been a resurgence of people, I think, who realize, all right, the world's not ending. I'd like to go to something really amazing, be around some extraordinary women, have incredible conversations, walk out the other side feeling unstoppable, up-leveled. I know my next chapter. I know my mission. It's like a reboot for those of you who, you know what you're doing. You may be wondering what's next, but you've proven yourself. You're at a point where it's time to look at that next evolution, and I will hold the space for that to come to you during those 2 days. iconicwithallybrown.com. Please come join us. And before we get started, 2 great reviews my team pulled for me from Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave these ladies. Powerful and inspiring conversations. Thank you, Tina from Burlington, Canada. Allie's conversations will give you the insight you need to make the right decision. There have been so many moments where I wanted to give up, and her podcast has helped me get back on track and realize my struggles are not novel. It's all about how you work through them. These stories will take you to the next level. And then Patty Bradshaw from Canada as well. Thank you. Inspiration and motivation for women of all ages. I love listening to the inspirational stories of the impressive women Allie interviews. The podcast gives me hope that more women will feel compelled to follow their hearts and dreams to create a rich and fulfilling life. We all need women to shine their light so we can mentor and gift our daughters with a more enlightened world. Thank you, Allie, and keep the conversations going. I so appreciate it when you take the time. Karma comes around, pay it forward, take a moment, go to Apple Podcasts. That's where we really would like to reach more women. It really helps our algorithm and more women know that these powerful conversations are happening. Thank you. Now, a powerful conversation with Tanya Dalton. Tanya, where are you today?
I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
It's so pretty there.
Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. Well, we chose to move here. This was a choice that we made because I figured, I run my own business. My husband works for me. So why wait till we retire to move where we want to move? Let's just do it now. Let's stop waiting until, someday when we can live wherever we want to. Let's live where we want to in the moment. So so we moved here in 2012 and I love it. I'm looking at mountains and I walk outside almost every day because the weather's so nice. It's gorgeous.
You moved on purpose.
I did. I do a lot of things on purpose.
It goes with your book. I'm thrilled about the book. The last time we had you on the show, you had released The Joy of Missing Out, which did fantastically. It was on like Fortune Top 10 Business Books of the Year, right?
Yes, it was Top 10 Business Book of the Year by Fortune Magazine. It was one of the best ways to hit your New Year's resolutions by Forbes Magazine, and Best Way to Be Productive by Goop. So it did well.
Oh my gosh, you made the Goop list?
I did. I made the Goop list.
That's epic. To me, that's bigger than Fortune. Like that's Goop is awesome. So what changed about your message for On Purpose? Or was this a continuation? What was there more that you wanted to share and say in this book?
Yeah, I like that question because when people ask me that, I'm like, they're like peanut butter and chocolate. Like they're really good on their own, but together they're amazing, right? So you can definitely just read one or the other, but I think they go together really, really well. The Joy of Missing Out really was about, and I guess it is because it's still out there, it's really about how do you create structure in your life? How do you prioritize when you don't know what to prioritize? How do you really maximize how you spend your time and what does that look like for you? Really creating systems and automations and creating a true productivity system for yourself. And, when it came time to write a second book, HarperCollins asked me to write a second book. And we sat down and we thought, well, goal setting is a natural continuation of the whole message of Joy of Missing Out. And so I thought I would write a goal setting book. And I thought that would be totally easy. I've taught thousands of women how to set and achieve their goals. So no problem. I sat down in February of 2020, mapped out the whole thing, right? Best laid plans, mapped the whole thing out, did a whole outline. I had a writing schedule for myself. I was like, we're going to make this super easy. And then, March 2020 happened. And all of a sudden I have kids at home. I'm homeschooling, filling out PPP paperwork. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my business and shifting how we do our fulfillment and making sure my team is taken care of. And the book sat on hold. Like I couldn't focus on the book. I was too busy shifting with the rest of the world. And I think that was a really good thing. It was such an amazing lesson for me because I am a planner. I love to plan things out. I like to have things mapped out. I like to know what I'm working on next.
Tanya has plans for plans. I just want you to all know, like Tanya has a plan for the plan and she plans way ahead.
It's true. It's true. But what's great is with this, it really showed me that we can't hold our plans so tightly. Like we can't grasp them in our fist because when things happen, we need to be able to shift and evolve. It's like having plans with like in open palms, allowing them just to grow. And that's what happened for me during the pandemic. I didn't start writing when I thought I would start writing. And then I didn't start writing again when I said, yes, I'm going to start writing. And I didn't start writing. And after a couple of months, I really started to recognize and realize that I was watching everybody around the world asking the same questions of like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is it I'm really put on this planet to do? Who am I? All these questions. And I was diving into those myself. And I realized goals are not the goal. That it's not about setting goals. Goals are the vehicle to get you the life you want. That really it's about something bigger. And so I took the really detailed outline and I just threw it away. And I started fresh and I just allowed my intuition to guide me. I followed the rabbit trails as things were evolving and unfolding for me. And I began to realize this book is so much bigger. It's really about your purpose and how goals help get you to your purpose. So we talk about goals, but it's not a goal setting book. It's really a book about living on purpose, living with intention, and living to your purpose. Kind of that double entendre.
Yeah. What do you how do you think this relates to where a lot of women are right now? Like, given the context of, there's a lot of shaking up going on now, right? There in the world in general, institutions, things that like we kind of relied on and planned around, and even our industries, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this big shakedown, like all around. Like, you can't get through a day without something being disrupted in your life.
Oh, yeah.
How does this relate?
Due to COVID, it's the rallying cry of 2020.
Well, you're dealing with this now in many ways, right? Like,
it's true. I think this is a great thing, though. I mean, you and I both agree that like some of the dismantling of these old models, this has been a long time coming. And what a great time to be alive as we're really stepping fully as women into the whole divine feminine and restructuring what life looks like, redefining what success looks like, and really allowing life to happen on our own terms. I think right now, as women, we have so much more autonomy than we've ever had in history. And we're taking the lead in a lot of the reshaping of how work happens. And I think that's what's exciting and amazing. And that's why I think this book happened, well, for a purpose, we could say, because it does answer those questions of what am I here for? Am I here for something bigger than this? And the answer is yes. You were designed for greatness. So stepping into that fully and completely is what I want women to do as they read through the pages of the book, and to really feel like they have a say in how life runs. I think so often we feel like we're going through the motions. We're on these patterns on repeat where it's like, well, this is just the way life is, or this is just how these things are done, or this is just, I just have to do these things and then one day I'll be happy. Someday when I achieve X, Y, or Z, or when I get to this level of revenue or whatever it is, all of that has been shaken, the foundations of it. And we are now able to really shape and mold that. And I think that's amazing. If we're looking for a silver lining in all of this hot mess that we've been experiencing over the last, year and a half, 2 years, that's it. That this has given us a great opportunity to fully step into what we were designed for. Yeah. And we can just absolutely embrace being perfectly imperfect. Like, go out, try the thing you've been thinking about. That dream you had, now's the time to go after it. Why not? Why not?
Because everything has to be on purpose now. There's nothing left to rely on, really.
Oh, yeah.
Externally.
Absolutely not. All the things that we used to do don't work anymore. The way that offices worked doesn't work anymore. The way that business work doesn't work anymore. The way that schools work doesn't work anymore. I mean, all of these institutions that we've had around for hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years, we're starting to realize there's been cracks and fissures and all this stuff for a really long time, but now more people are seeing the cracks. Now more people are starting to have conversations about it. And I think that's what's making a difference. I mean, in the book, there's a letter to the reader, and the first line of the book is, this book is not designed to help you fit in with the status quo. This book is really designed to help you go counter to what society has told you, the tidy little boxes that you've been cramming yourself into for the past couple of decades of your life. Let's break free of that. Yeah. Standing in who you are authentically, completely, really embracing who you are and what you desire. That's really what I want women to do.
Where do you think women especially get the most stuck in even the idea of this all being possible?
Well, it's all between our ears, right? It's all the messaging in our heads from society, from ourselves, from our friends and our families even, that we as women are givers, and we are supposed to give. We're supposed to do it all. We are supposed to do it all, and we're supposed to look incredibly good while we're doing it. And it all needs to be done perfectly. And I think that really holds us back, that we don't feel like we can be true and real. And I think that we worry that if we go after what we really want, what are other people going to think of us? What are people going to think of me? People will be upset. People are going to question who I am as a mother. People are going to question who does she think she is? We have been in tribes, traditionally, and you step out of the tribe to do your own thing, and that's death right there. You're killed for stepping out of line. And so it really is, we've had this mindset of we've got to fit in with everybody else, even if we don't agree with it, even if it doesn't reconcile with our heart or with our soul. And so it really is this question of, if I step out and I do something different, if I don't do what everybody else is doing, is that selfish? And it's not. I think that's the big thing. It's, am I taking away from others by really buying into my own happiness? And the short answer there is no, absolutely not. Because when we use our gifts, when we share our gifts with the world, we're better able to make an impact. And in fact, keeping your gifts, your amazing, unique gifts, keeping that away from the rest of the world, that is what's selfish. So we want to go after our dreams, and we should go after our dreams because we're being called to them. And so chase after that calling.
The subtitle of the book, so the book is On Purpose. The subtitle is The Busy Woman's Guide to an Extraordinary Life of Meaning and Success. I'd like you to walk us through your journey to that point.
To an extraordinary life? Well, it's quite a journey.
Yeah, because when you came into my world, you were already Tanya Dalton. You know what I mean? But I'm like, she's a big deal. And have everyone go back and kind of give us a bit of the evolution into who you've become.
Yeah, well, I think what's really interesting is, where I am and who I am today is not where I ever expected I would be. If you look at really the start of my adulthood, I started off as a teacher, and then I thought I would be a stay-at-home mom. I had my kids, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I wasn't really fulfilled by it. It wasn't like, and I felt like there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't filled with just awe every single day. So I decided to start my own little kind of side business. I started it with $50. And it was just supposed to be something that I was doing that was keeping me occupied. So I wasn't just parenting, because I needed something else to do. And my husband was traveling. He does international marketing, or he did at the time. And he would literally leave our home in Dallas, Texas, and he would buy a ticket called the Around the World ticket. And he would fly and he would circle the entire globe. He touched like 6 continents on one trip one time. And I had a conversation with him when he was on the other side of the planet one day. I was telling him all the things that the kids were doing, and they were laughing and doing all these things. And he got really quiet. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I'm missing everything. I'm missing the moments. I'm missing the milestones. I'm missing time with the kids." And I was like, no. The kids are happy when you come home. And he was like, "No, I'm missing it." And I hung up the phone that night, and I stood in my yellow kitchen, and I made a big choice that day. I made a decision that I was going to grow my side hobby business that I started with $50. I was going to grow it to the point where I could absorb his MBA income and have him come work alongside of me, so we could have a lifestyle that really fit what he wanted and what I wanted together. So it was a pretty audacious thing to think, especially because I had 0 business experience. I had never even taken a class in college on business, which I'm like, that's crazy. I'm totally telling my kids, like, take business classes. So I'm in that kitchen with 2 small kids playing at my feet, mapping out what this is going to look like, what I now call a cathedral, having this giant thing off in the distance that we're working towards. And I mapped that out. And within about a year, I was able to make that come true. I was able to absorb his MBA income. He came and started working alongside of me. And that was about in 2009. And then in 2012, we made the decision, if we have this lifestyle freedom, why don't we live where we want to live? So we moved to Asheville. And then in 2013, I looked at him and I said, "I love you. I love working with you, but I don't love what we're doing. I'm not really fulfilled. It's not really making the impact I want in the world." And he was like, "Okay, great. What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I started Googling and trying to figure out, and everything was like, start by writing down your purpose. And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What is my purpose? So I created some exercises and activities for myself to really dive into who I am and what I'm really passionate about. And out of that, I came up with 3 things that I'm truly passionate about. I love empowering women. I love working with women. I love seeing when women get fired up and get excited about what they do. I love teaching. I've always been a teacher, even outside of a classroom. So I love the service side of teaching. And I love productivity because that's what allowed me to scale a business from $50 to 6 figures, absorbing my husband's income in about a year or so. So I took those 3 very unrelated things and I created Inkwell Press Productivity Co. out of that. So a company that is dedicated to helping redefine productivity for women through products and tools and services that we offer. And so I closed up the one business, closed up my first business, went without any income because remember, my husband is working with me. So that was a scary time because we had no income for 4 or 5 months. And my kids do like to eat 3 meals a day. So that does make things a little bit scary. And I looked at him about a week before we launched Inkwell Press, and I said, this is either going to be amazing or we're going to be living in our car under a bridge. And a week later, we launched and had about 500 orders on launch day and hit 7 figures within the first 18 months and just were off and running. And when I hit that 7-figure mark, we only had 3 employees, me, my husband, John, and a part-timer. And I like to say I eat what I cook when it comes to productivity. And so from that, I started to really spin off and be able to do things like the podcast. We started being in stores like Office Depot, Office Max, and other big stores like that. I started offering courses and programs, and then publishers started knocking on my door asking me to write a book. And then we had The Joy of Missing Out. And here we are with the second book coming out on purpose, which is amazing.
When did the importance of purpose eclipse, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the importance of purpose has eclipsed the importance of productivity for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say really all along I've had these threads of it, right? It's like that whole idea. I think it's Steve Jobs who says you can't connect the dots in moving forward. You can only connect them in looking back. In looking back, I can see how purpose has been woven so strongly in everything I've done. But I didn't really recognize it and realize it until the recent couple of years, I would say, in really understanding how important it is to do what you love, to get fired up on a regular daily basis, and to really make an impact, not just in the lives of others, but in the lives of your family and your friends and in your own life. You know, I used to think productivity, like many people, I used to think it was really about doing things really quickly. And I'm really on a mission now to redefine productivity, that it's not about doing more, it's doing what's most important. So if we're prioritizing, how do we figure out what those priorities are? Well, we do that when we understand our purpose even better, right? Yeah. All of that is really, truly connected. It's all about intentionality. I like to say that people will come in the door because they'll be like, ooh, productivity, tell me more. And I'm like, it's really intentional living. That's what being truly productive is all about.
I remember when I got into, when I started my business and I was listening to all these courses and programs, I would drive around LA in my VW Beetle. This is another story that has to go in the book. I'm writing down all these little stories. And I had this, it's worth mentioning. I don't know why I'm thinking about it. I had a cat named Francine who would ride in the car with me. She literally would sit. She was so old.
I have to get a mental picture of you, Allie. First of all, in a VW Beetle.
It's when the Beetles came out again and they were like new and super cool. Like everyone wanted one. I had the flower holder. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
And I had a cowboy hat on and I had a cat in the front seat with me. So I'm driving around listening to like Brian Tracy CDs, right? This is like what I did.
Yep. Okay.
Because we would all just like buy this stuff. You know, I didn't have any women to learn from, right? So I'd buy, you know, goal setting from Brian Tracy and like, you know, who's some of the other time guys? I'm trying to think of productivity.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they're all guys. They literally are all guys in that space.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got some good stuff, but I remember thinking like, this is so linear. I remember even going to a workshop with a few of those guys. It was great to see them all. I mean, they're getting older. Actually, that was one of the last speaking gigs that Jim Rohn did before he passed. I was so glad I went. He was one of Tony Robbins' original mentors. And I remember sitting there and they had a goal setting workshop. It was on the agenda. I'm like, well, great. I'll be there. I want to be in my seat by 2:00 for this one. And we're sitting there and they basically just handed out this workbook saying, write down your goals, like for the next 10 goals for 10 years. And it was just this whole linear process. There was no conversation around what is incredibly meaningful to me? Like, what is life really about? It was like a transaction. And then when I tapped into your stuff and saw what you're doing, I'm like, oh, no one has done this yet. We've been waiting for this for so long. And then when I saw the theme of your next book and the cover, which is the Nautilus shell, right?
Yeah, a little play on the Fibonacci spiral.
I resonate with it immediately because for us, and I mean, I know for myself, like it's been this upward spiral. There's cycles, there's rhythms. We do things so much differently than men do. And I think though they're ascending with us to start working and being in a different way, was there a certain moment that you knew like, oh my God, women are really going to resonate with this material?
Well, I think that's what the thing is, when I wrote The Joy of Missing Out, one of the things that publishers got so excited about, and part of the reason why it went to auction, we had 7 different publishing houses auctioning for it, was because they said no one has ever written a productivity book for women by a woman. No one's written a book where there's a productivity system in it that's designed for women.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's shocking, right? And so it is, I mean, like our brains work differently than men's brains do. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's a fabulous thing. I love that our brains work differently in many ways, some ways the same. But as we're really stepping into our full femininity and our divine feminine selves, really understanding this richness of it's not just who we are at work and this whole idea of hustle, grind, and repeat. It's time to do away from that. I watch so many women just wearing ourselves out, wearing all the hats, CEO of the office, CEO of the home, right? We're wearing both of those hats and we're just exhausted. And so I knew that when I was writing this book, I mean, I literally will picture the woman I'm writing to sitting across from me. And I will read the words out loud and imagine how she's going to take those words in. And to me, one of the greatest compliments I get when someone reads my book is when they say, it was like you were inside my head. Or like you're hearing these conversations I'm having with my best friend. How did you know I felt this way? And I want to just say, honey, we all feel this way. Mm-hmm. We're all exhausted. We're all tired of trying to do all the things. We're all worn out of, battling this negative voice inside of our heads telling us that we can't do these things. It's hard enough that we have to battle with some of the stereotypes that are out there, but we're battling our own demons in our own heads. So that's why I think it resonates so strongly with women, is because as a woman, I write from that perspective, which is vastly different. It's like when we have conversations in the trust, Allie, honestly, and we have these conversations and we stand up and we talk about how we feel about our kids in school. I mean, we're talking about our businesses, we're talking about profit, we're talking about revenue, but we're also talking about who we are outside of our businesses. Who we are is really important. And for so long, we've put so much emphasis on who we are from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And we don't worry about what we feel like at the end of the day. We don't worry about all the other things. We just kind of chewing gum and scotch tape ourselves together at the end of the day, waiting for that glass of wine. And really, it's time for us to take care of our whole selves. And that includes how we define success, how we look at what we're doing, how we feel, what are the thoughts that go through our head when your head hits the pillow at the end of the day. That is incredibly important. I think happiness is one of those things that we just act as a soft thing that doesn't matter, and it matters intensely. It really does, because happiness is what we're all striving for, truly, at the end of the day.
So give us an insight into the process that you walk women through, or a few of the key principles that are in On Purpose, so people can start gaining some things right now.
Yeah. So the book is divided into 4 sections of reflection, projection, action, and alteration. So we start with reflection because we need to look backwards in order to move forwards. Sometimes we have to see how far we've come in order to see how far we can go in moving forward. And I think one of the things that really stymies people when it comes to that word purpose is it feels so heavy. Like, oh, what if I don't know what my purpose is? Or does this have to define me now and forever? It's like purpose, right? And sometimes people will feel like, I don't even know what that looks like for me. So we begin with reflection, because reflection answers that question of why. Why do I feel the way that I do? Why am I passionate about the things that I am? Really diving into who we are and who we've been in the past, before we were adults, especially who we were and what ignited our souls. Because a lot of times what our purpose is tied very strongly to those things. So we start with reflection, and I talk about some different exercises and activities we can do to help uncover what your purpose is. And then we move into projection, which is really answers the question of what. Okay, what is it I want to do? What does this look like for me? And we talk about the fact that so many people are setting goals that aren't really their goals. You know, if you set a goal in January and you find that fire is just out for that goal by like February, March, it probably wasn't really your goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we look around, we look at this woman over here and she's doing amazing things, so I need to do what she's doing. Or that woman over there, look at her on social media, I'm going to do those things. And we forget to tap into our own gifts. We forget to tap into the things that make us truly unique and special. And so we set our goals for what everybody else is doing. So really uncovering what our goals need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that by looking forward into the future, by tapping into what I call cathedral thinking, which is really about thinking bigger than today. And then we think of it almost like a map of, if you are here now and this is where you want to go, let's create, I call it wayfinding. Let's create some landmarks to really back into what are your goals. So we look at our potential. What do I think I can do in 20 years or 10 years, far off in the future? What's my potential? Then we back that up a little bit and we say, okay, if that's my potential, what's possible? What's possible that I could do in the next 3 to 5 years? That's still pretty far away, right? So then let's back it up some more. If that's what's possible, what's practical? What could I do in 12 months or maybe 18?
Mm-hmm.
And then we start kind of honing in. Okay, if that's what's practical, if I think I can practically do that in 12 to 18 months, what do I need to prioritize? What are the things I really need to focus in on for the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next 9 months? Those priorities, those are really your goals. Those landmarks are the goals that you will want to set to get you to that big, beautiful cathedral off into your future. And that's how we tie what we're doing today to what we desire in the future.
Do you think people just don't think that far down the line? They're too caught up, or it's that they don't take the time to know what they want? Why don't people think this way?
Well, I think what's fascinating is our brain is not wired for it. Our brain is really wired for today. Our brain is wired for survival, and it wants to make sure that you survive today. And that is the whole purpose of what your brain does. So, there's some really fascinating fMRI studies where they have participants talk about themselves today, and a certain area of the brain lights up and it gets really, really colorful. And then they have those same participants talk about themselves in the future. Now, the future could be 3 years from now. It could be 3 weeks from now. It could be 3 hours from now. But when you speak about yourself in the future, a different part of your brain lights up, the part that's not associated with you. Here's what's most interesting. When those same participants talk about Natalie Portman or Matt Damon, that same area of the brain lights up as when you think about yourself in the future. So for your brain, you in the future is not you. It's a stranger. It's someone who looks like you and talks like you and has the same name as you, but it's not you. And this is why we have a hard time of picturing ourselves in the future. This is why we buy the expensive shoes instead of investing in our 401k, because that woman in the future who has to deal with retirement, well, that's not you. So she can deal with that. Right? So our brain prioritizes today over the future. And so when we recognize that, we can start training our brain to really look forward into the future, because we don't need to worry about getting caught by the saber-toothed tiger anymore. We're good. We're going to survive today. So that's really part of the reason why we struggle with seeing ourselves in the future. So taking the time to recognize that, and we talk about how you can do that in the book, is really, really powerful.
What's the type of feedback you've gotten from these principles when you teach them to women and see them in action?
Oh my gosh, it's like amazing. I mean, if you're going to ask me what I'm addicted to, I'll tell you it's like light bulb moments. Like when women's eyes, you see them like get bigger and they like light up and they're like, oh, they take that intake of air. That's what fires me up. Like that's what I love more than anything else. That's why I do what I do. And, I've taught this methodology of reflection, projection, action, and alteration for years. And I'll hear from women who are like, this is the first time I've ever really understood how to set my goals. This is the first time I've ever actually accomplished my goals. And they just feel so much more empowered because they're recognizing that it's their goals. And therefore, they're more fired up for them. They're more excited about them and they're better able to accomplish them. That's what I think is amazing. When I get these letters and DMs and emails from these women who are like, I never thought I could do this. And I'm doing it right now because of this method. That's 100% what it's all about.
So where should people get the book?
Well, you can get the book anywhere books are sold. So it's available at Amazon. It's available at Barnes & Noble. Bookshop is one of my other favorite places to really recommend people because that connects you with independent bookstores, which of course I love promoting and talking about independent bookstores. So it's available anywhere books are sold. You can also find links to all the different places where you can find it on my website at tanyadalton.com. So yeah, it's available anywhere books are sold.
And I'm going to put you on the spot with a question you weren't expecting.
Uh-oh.
That's right. If you were to write a third book sooner than later, and you probably are already, what is that book going to be about? What's the next level of Tanya? What is that message?
That's a good question because I have like 75 different ideas for another book. But one of the books I kind of love the idea of is really incorporating more of the family aspect with productivity and what that looks like, really doubling down on what productivity looks like as family members with our kids, with our spouses. I kind of am in love with that idea right now.
I love that. I love that. Well, to wrap up, can you share 3 great pieces of advice with all the women listening?
Absolutely. So my first piece of advice would be if you're feeling uncertain about what your future looks like, or you're thinking, I don't know what my purpose is, start with some reflection. Start really, really easy. Here's a really quick, easy question that you can start with. What did I want to be when I grew up? When you were young, before that cloak of adulthood came over you and you were like, this is unrealistic, what were the things that really excited you? What careers? Like, did you want to be an astronaut or did you want to be president? Did you want to be Wonder Woman? What was it? And then ask yourself, why did I like that? Ask yourself why a couple of times. Like, if it was Wonder Woman, was it because she stood for truth and justice? Was it because she could get the truth out of people? Was it because she inspired a generation of young girls? Ask yourself and start mining your past for what really fired you up when you were a kid and see how you can start incorporating that into your adulthood. That, I think, is a really simple and easy strategy to start tapping into what you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And then I would say my second piece of advice would be, to throw out your to-do list, because I think your to-do list takes you everywhere but where you want to go, and choose instead to make a priority list. A priority list takes exactly the same amount of time as a to-do list does, but it's a to-do list with intention. It really is taking time to rank and prioritize what you want to work on for each day. And a priority list is intentionally just your priorities. I think that when you are really clear on how you want to spend your day, I think that is really, really powerful because, we lose that overwhelm. Overwhelm isn't having too much to do. It's not knowing where to start. That's one of the big things I say all the time. Our to-do list confuses us and takes us in 1,000 different directions. A priority list takes us on a journey, one thing after the next, and we always feel empowered.
Yeah.
And then my third piece of advice would be, in that same vein as what we just talked about, when you're planning out your day, I think so often we think about the number of things we can do. And instead, I would challenge you to start thinking about, how do I want to feel at the end of the day? What is the emotion I want to feel today? And be careful that you don't say the same thing every day. Because some days it's, I want to be fully present with my kids because I have something going on with my kids. So I want to get these things done so I can be fully present. Or maybe it might be, I want to feel really satisfied with where I am with this marketing campaign. And that gives you direction. Really focusing in on what's the emotion or the feeling I want to have. When my head hits the pillow at the end of the day, use that as your North Star of what you should work on today.
Oh, I love that.
I think it's really powerful when you start doing that.
I love that. Tanya, thank you so much. We're so excited the book. Everyone, you've got to get On Purpose, The Busy Woman's Guide to an Extraordinary Life of Meaning and Success. And I'm telling you, there's nothing else out there like Tanya's work. She's someone I've come to just get to know so closely, have such a deep respect for everything she creates and the level of integrity that she delivers content that is truly life-changing. So Tanya, thank you for gracing us with your incredible wisdom. And we're excited to dive into the book even further.
Oh, well, thank you so much for those kind words. I mean, from someone that I truly admire and respect, I am receiving that. That's one of the things I'm working on, is receiving nice words of affirmation. So thank you, Allie.
Awesome. Take care, Tanya. Bye. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.